Introduction: Lost and Found. Every morning, as I walk into Pixar Animation Studio, past the 20-foot high sculpture of Luxor JR, our friendly desk lamp mascot, through the double door into a spectacular glass ceiling area where man-sized Buzz Lightyear and Woody, made entirely of Lego bricks, stand at attention up the stage past sketches and paintings of the characters that have populated our 14 films. I'm struck by the unique culture and define this place. Although I made this walk thousands of times, it never gets old. Built on the site of a former cannery, Pixar 15-acre campus just over the Bay of Bridge from San Francisco was designed inside and out by Steve Jobs. Its name, in fact, is Steve Jobs Building. It has well thought out patterns of entry and egress that encourages people to mingle, meet, communicate. Outside there is a soccer field, a volleyball court, a swimming pool, a 600-seat amphitheater. Sometimes the visitors misunderstand the place and thinking it's a fancy for fancy's sake. But what they miss is that the unifying idea for this building isn't luxury, but the community. Steve wanted the building to support our work by enhancing our ability to collaborate. The animators who work here are free to know, encouraged to decorate their workspaces in whatever style they wish. They spend their days inside pink dollhouse whose ceilings are hung with miniature chandeliers, Tiki-Hut made of real bamboo, castle whose meticulously painted 15-foot high styrofoam turrets appear to be carved from stone. Annual company traditions include Pixar Palooza, where our in-house rock band battle for dominance, shedding their hair out on stages we erect on our front lawn. The point is, we value self-expression here. This tends to make a big impression on visitors, who often tell me that the experience of walking into Pixar leaves them feeling a little wishful, like something is missing in their work lives. A palpable energy, a feeling of collaboration, unfettered creativity, a sense not to be corny of possibility. I respond by telling them that the feeling they are picking up on, calling it exuberance, irrelevance, every whimsy, is integral of our success. But it is not what makes Pixar special. What makes Pixar special is that we acknowledge we will always have problems, so many of them hidden from our view, that we work hard to uncover these problems, even if doing so means making ourselves uncomfortable, that when we came across a problem, we marshal all of our energies to solve it. This, more than any elaborate party of turret workstation, is why I love coming to the work in the morning. It is what motivates me and gives me a definite sense of mission. There was a time, however, when my purpose here felt less clear to me. It might surprise you when I tell you, on November 22, 1995, Toy Story debuted in America's theaters and became the largest Thanksgiving opening in history. Critics hailed the inventive, time brilliant, excellently witty. The New York Times visionary, Chicago Sun-Times. To find a movie worthy of comparison, wrote the Washington Post, one had to go back in 1939, The Wizard of Oz. The making of Toy Story first feature film to be animated entirely on a computer had requires every ounce of tenacity, artistry, technical wizardry, and endurance. The 100 or so men and women who produced it had weathered countless ups and downs, as well as ever-present, hair-raising knowledge that our survival depended on this 80-minute experiment. For 5 straight years, we fought to do Toy Story on our way. We resisted the advice of Disney executives who believed that since they had such a success with musicals, we too should fill our movie with songs. We would rebooted the story completely more than once to make it sure it rang true. We worked nights, weekends, holidays mostly without complaint, despite being novice filmmakers and fledging studio in the dire financial strait. We had put our faith in simple idea. We made something that we wanted to see. Others would want to see it. For a long time, it felt like we had a pushing that rock up the hill, trying to do the impossible. There was plenty of moments when the future of Pixar was in doubt. Now we were suddenly being held up as an example of what could happen when artists trusted their guts. Toy Story went on to become the top grossing film of the year and would earn 358 million worldwide, but it wasn't just the numbers that made us proud and money. After all, is just one measure of thriving company and usually not the most meaningful one. No, what I found gratifying was what we created. Review after review focused on the film, moving plotline and its rich three-dimensional characters, only briefly mentioning almost as an that it had made on a computer. While there was much innovation that enabled our work, we had not let the technology overwhelm our real purpose, making a great film. On a personal level, Toy Story represented the fulfillment of a goal I had pursued for more than 2 decades and had dreamed about since I was a boy. Growing up in 1950s, I had yearned to be a Disney animator but had no idea how to go about it. Intrinsically, I realize now I embrace computer graphics than a new field as a means of pursuing that dream. If I couldn't animate by hand, there had to be another way. In graduation school, I quietly set a goal of making the first computer animated feature film. I would work tirelessly for 20 years to accomplish it. Now the goal that had been a driving force in my life had reached. There was enormous sense of relief, exclaimation, at least at first. In the wake of Toy Story release, we took the company public and raising the first kind of money that would ensure our work as an independent production house began our work on two feature-length film projects, A Bug's Life and Toy Story. Everything was going our way, yet I felt adrift. In fulfilling a goal, I had lost some essential framework. Is this really what I want to do? I began asking myself. The doubt, surprised, and confused me. I kept them to myself. I had served as Pixar president for most of the company's existence. I loved the place and everything that it stood for. I still couldn't deny that achieving the goal is that we had defined my professional life had left me without one. Is this all there is? I wondered. Is this time for a new challenge? It wasn't that I thought Pixar had arrived or that my work was done. I knew there was major obstacles in front of us. The company was racing to put two new films into production. There was in short plenty occupy my workhouse. But my internal sense of purpose, the thing that led me to sleep on the floor of computer lab in graduation school just to get more hours on the mainframe, that kept me awake at night as a kid solving puzzles in my head, that fueled my everyday workday, had gone missing. I would spend 2 decades building a train and laying its track. Now the thought of merely driving it struck me as far as interesting task was making one film after another enough to engage me. I wondered what would be organizing principle now. It would take a full year for the answer to emerge. From the start, my professional life seemed to be destined to have one foot in Silicon Valley and the other in Hollywood. I first got into film business in 1979 when the flush from the success of Star Wars. George Lucas hired me to help him to bring high technology into film industry. But he wasn't based in Los Angeles. Instead, he founded his company Lucasfilm at the north end of San Francisco. Our office was located in San Rafael, about an hour's drive from Palo Alto, the heart of Silicon Valley, a monkier that was just gaining traction then, and semiconductor and computer industries took off. That proximity gave me a front row seat from which to observe the many emerging hardware and software companies, not to mention the growing venture capital industry. In the course of few years, when years would come to dominate Silicon Valley from its perch and handheld growth. I was quite an focused student in high school. An art teacher once told my parents I would often become so lost in my work that I wouldn't hear the bell ring at the end of the class. I would be sitting there at my desk and staring at an object, a vase, say a chair, something about an act of committing object to paper was completely engrossing. The way it necessitated seeing only what was there and shouting out distraction of my ideas about chairs, vase, what they were supposed to look like. At home, I sent away for John Greggy Learn to Draw art kit where we were advertised in the back of comic books. In 1948, classic animation written and drawn by Preston Blair, the animator of Dancing Hippos in the Disney Fantasia. I bought a platen, the flat metal plate artist used to press paper against ink. Even built a fly animation stand with a light under it. I made flick books. One was of a man whose legs turned into a unicycle. While nursing my first crush, Tinkerbell, who had won my heart in Peter Pan, nevertheless, as it soon became clear to me that I would never be talented enough to join Disney Animation vault ranks. What's more, I had no idea how one actually become an animator. There was no school for it I knew of as I finished high school. I realized I had a better understanding of how to become a scientist. The route seemed easier to discern. Throughout my life, people have always smiled when I told them I switched from art to physics because it seems to them like such an incongruous leap. But my decision to pursue physics and not art would lead me to indirectly to my true calling. 4 years later, in 1969, I graduated from the University of Utah with 2 degrees, one in physics and others in emerging field of computer science. Applying to graduate school, my intention was to learn how to design computer language, but soon after I matriculated also U of U, I met a man who would encourage me to change course, one of the pioneers of interactive computer graphics, Ivan Sutherland. The field of computer graphics, in essence of making the digital pictures out of numbers or data that can be manipulated by machine, was in infancy then. But Professor Sutherland was already a legend. Early in his career, he had devised something called Sketchpad, an indigenous computer program that allowed figures to be drawn and copied, moved, rotated, resized, all while retaining their plastic basic properties. In 1968, he co-created what is widely believed to be the first virtual reality head-mounted display system. Because it was so heavy that in order to worn by the person using it, he had to be suspended from a mechanical arm bolted to the ceiling. Sutherland and Dave Evans, who was chair of University of Computer Science department, were magnets for touch. Basically, they welcomed us to the program, gave us workspace and access to computers, then let us pursue whatever turned on us. The result was a collaborative, supportive community so inspiring that I would later seek to replicate it at Pixar. One of my classmates, Jim Clark, would go on to found Silicon Graphics and Netscape. Another, John Warlock, who would co-found Adobe, known for Photoshop, PDF file format, among other things. Still another, Alan Kay, would lead on a number of fronts, from object-oriented programming to windowing graphical user interfaces. In many respects, my fellow students were the most inspirational part of my university experience. This collegial collaborative atmosphere was vital, not just to my enjoyment of the program but also quality of work that I did. The tension between the personal creative contribution, the leverage of the group of dynamic that existed, all creative environment. But this would be my first taste of it. One end of the spectrum, I noticed he had the genius who seemed to do amazing work on his own. On the other end, we had the group that excelled precisely because it multiplicity of views. Then how then should we balance these two extremes? I wondered. I didn't yet have a good mental model that would help me to answer that. I was developing a fierce desire to find one. Much research being done to U of U computer science department was funded by ARPA. As he said, ARPA had been created in response to Sputnik. One of key organizing principle was that collaboration would lead to excellence. In fact, one of ARPA's proudest achievements was linking universities with something called ARPANET, which would eventually evolve into the internet. The first four nodes of ARPANET were at the Stanford Research Institute, UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, and U of U. I had a ringside seat from which to observe these grand experiments. What I saw influenced me profoundly. ARPA mandate to support smart people in variety of areas was carried out based on the unwavering presumptions that research would try to do this right thing, and ARPA view over managing them was counterproductive. ARPA administrations did not hover over the shoulder of those of us working on the projects that they funded, nor did they demanded that our work have directly military application. They simply trusted us to innovate. The kind of trust gave me the freedom to tackle all sorts of complex problems that I did with gusto. Not only did I often sleep on the floor of computer rooms to maximize time on the computer, but so did many of my fellow graduate students. We were young, driven by the sense that we were inventing the fields from scratch. That was exciting beyond words. For the first time, I saw a way of simulatingly create art and develop a technical understanding of how to create a new kind of imaginary. Making pictures with a computer spoke to both sides of my brain. To be sure, the pictures that could be rendered on a computer were very crude in 1969, but the act was inventing new algorithms, seeing better pictures as a result of thrilling to me. In its own way, my childhood dream was reasserting itself. At the age of 26, I set a new goal: to develop a way to animate not with a pencil but with a computer, to make the image compelling, beautiful enough to use in movies. Perhaps I thought I could become an animator after all. In spring 1972, I spent 10 weeks making my first short animated film, a digitalized model of my left hand. My process combined old and new again. Like everyone in this fast changing field, I was helping to invent the language. I first plunged my hand into a tub of plaster of Paris, forgetting unfortunately to coat in the Vaseline first, in which I meant I had to yank out every tiny hair on the back of my hand to get it free. Then once I had the mold, I filled it with more plaster to make a model of my hand. Then I took that model cover with the 350 tiny interlocking triangles and polygons to create what looked like a net of black lines. Its skin. You may not think that a curved surface could build out on such a flat angular element, but when you make them small enough, you can get pretty close. I've chosen this project because I was interested in rendering complex objects and curved surfaces. I was looking for a challenge. At the time, computers weren't great at showing flat objects, let alone curved ones. The mathematics of curved surfaces was not well developed, and computers had limited memory capabilities, and the U of U computer graphics department were every one of us yearned to make computer-generated images look as if they were photographs or real objects. We had three driving goals: speed, realism, the ability to depict curved surfaces. My film sought to address the latter two. The first, human hand doesn't have a single flat plane. Unlike a simpler curved surface, a ball, for example, it has many parts that act in opposition to another. With the seemingly infinite number of resulting movements, the hand is an incredibly complex object to try to capture and translate into an array of numbers. Given that most computer animation at the time consisted of rendering simple polygonal objects, cubes, pyramids, I had my work to cut out for me. I once had drawn the triangles and polygons of my model. I measured the coordinates of each of corners, then entered that into 3D animation program I'd written that enabled me to display many triangles